What's going on? We're going to talk about Twilight Lord Kelris, the 6th and arguably most difficult fight in Blackfathom Deeps. Now, this fight is a two-phase encounter, and in phase 1, the most important mechanic is the boss's sleep. Roughly 10 seconds into the fight, the boss will sleep the two nearest players to his location. These players will be sent to the Dream Realm, where their goal is to find a portal to return back to the real world. Now, the way you do this is by DPSing down the Twilight Priestesses, as each of them have a chance at spawning a portal that you can interact with to get sent back out. If you're unable to find a portal after 30 seconds, the boss uses Dream Eater, killing all players currently asleep. Now, how the boss chooses which players get slept depends on two things. One is whether or not they've already been slept. The boss will not sleep the same person twice. And two is how close they are to the boss. Knowing this, we can predict and plan around who gets sent down, in the sense that the players you want to send down should be the nearest to the boss, or at least nearer than any other players that haven't yet been sent down. Good candidates to get sent down are really any melee DPS, tanks, hunters, mages. Generally, you want to try and avoid sending healers and warlocks down unless you have some kind of plan. Healers obviously don't do much damage, and warlocks generally struggle on a lot of low health targets, so their damage profile isn't very good. Now, for some other notes regarding the sleep, as somebody down below DPSing the priestesses, you don't actually have to kill them to check whether or not they'll spawn a portal. You just have to bring them to a low enough health value to the point that they either transform into a tentacle or transform into a portal. Now, for the most part, this isn't going to change much about how you're damaging the adds, but if you're cutting the timer close, try to prioritize adds slightly above this health threshold as opposed to adds that have already turned into a tentacle, because you know those ones won't be the portal. On the other hand, if you roll high and get an early portal, instead of taking the portal out right away, what you can do is start damaging the hostile adds down below. Now at this point, this is still speculative, but I believe that these adds contribute to the boss's damage in phase 2, in the sense that if we completely ignore these adds, the boss does slightly more damage during that time, which can be scary, although the fight is still doable. So don't stress too much over it, but if you have the time, you can put that damage into these hostile adds. Now, if you're worried that you're losing uptime on Lord Kelris himself, don't worry. The boss will always put two new players to sleep exactly 10 seconds after the two previous players wake up from their slumber. So whether or not you spend 30 seconds down below or 10 seconds doesn't make a difference concerning overall uptime on the boss. Lastly, as far as how many players you can expect will get sent down during phase 1, for most groups it seems like it'll be around 6 players, although it depends on how quickly you find the portal and how fast or slow your damage is on the boss. This number could go up to 8 or even go down to 4. Now, aside from the sleep, Lord Kelris has a few other mechanics worth noting. The first being Shadow Crash. Lord Kelris will target a random ranged player with Shadow Crash, which then leaves a void zone upon impact which steadily increases, dealing ticking damage to any player standing inside of it. As a ranged player, try to bait this void zone in a favorable position that won't inhibit yourself or any of your other raiders. What we found to work was to just slowly go in a circle, baiting the next Shadow Crash adjacent to the previous one. Additionally, be careful not to bait a Shadow Crash next to a sleeping player, as you then run the risk of that void zone growing into that player. Now, while it won't deal damage to them while they're asleep, once they come out of their slumber, they'll take heavy ticking damage, and we want to avoid that as much as possible. Then the boss has two interruptible casts, the first being Mind Blast, which gets cast on the tank, the second being Shadowy Chains, which is a priority kick. This ability is used roughly every 10 seconds, so just assign one person that has a 10 or less second kick to always interrupt it. Make sure you have a backup in case they get sent down to the Dream Realm. This ability does heavy upfront damage and also leaves a dot and slows players. It can be dispelled, but healers should be conserving for phase 2, and we don't want to exhaust their mana reserves just yet. Speaking of phase 2, once the boss gets to 30% health, phase 2 begins. Any players still asleep will be forcibly awoken, and all of the void zones in the room will be cleared. Lord Kelris himself retains most of the abilities from phase 1, except now he no longer sleeps. His casts become uninterruptible, so players need to spread out to mitigate the damage dealt by Shadowy Chains. He can no longer be tanked, in the sense that he now just casts on random players, regardless of threat, and he gains a buttload of haste. This part of the fight is a pure DPS race. Blast the boss before he blasts you, and that's the fight. Collect your loot, and move on to the final boss of the instance. I'll see you then. Thanks for watching.